Good afternoon, everyone. This is Naishat Gadani coming to you from Melbourne. And yes, we are in lockdown 5. There's just a lot of funny memes going out there called Rocky 5 and just really creative, people out there who are just having fun at that. But it's not fun at all for those who are enduring this lockdown for next 5 days, and especially to the parents who will be homeschooling, just like myself, kids, and where the kids are fighting over a lolly bag, and then you have to act like an umpire and make sure that both the kids are happy, is really not the lockdown that I wanted. But here we go. We are in lockdown, and we are here to make your afternoon a little bit more optimistic or brighter, through Career Care Package. This is the 214th show. We like to call this as longest running LinkedIn live show ever, in the world. And someday LinkedIn will hear this and they will come to my home and say, "This is a surprise for you. We are going to give you something in return." But until that time, we will just power along. We will continue to inspire and brighten your day and your career in this way. And to brighten your career, we have got Callie Fallon, all the way from non-lockdown Brisbane. And she's one of the newest Australians as well. She just got her Australian citizenship just a couple of days back, and this is considered this is a rite of passage. What do we say? So that's why we have invited Kelly here. But no, she's got amazing, insights to talk about career transition specifically. But before we get to speak to Kelly, let's welcome Caroline Brown.
Thanks, Naish. And I think it's episode 214. And it's probably the 214th time you've asked for something from LinkedIn. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Anyway, I was just wondering, what are you expecting to get? A car?
I
or just like
a
notepad?
I say surprise me. I say surprise. Okay, it doesn't matter. But we've also, before you start, Kara, we've got a Sydney sider. I'm pretty sure she's saying apologies for sending the infection.
Yeah, I think your apologies
is not accepted at all. You can continue to apologize. The way I continuously ask LinkedIn for a gift, you can continuously apologize. But no, I appreciate you being.
I mean, we were sitting smug for 2 days? We got 2 days of smugness, and that's it. So anyway, I mean, I'm sure we've sent lots of stuff back New South Wales way. So yeah, it is what it is. So, yeah, today, really excited to have you here, Kelly, because I was reflecting on COVID and lockdowns and working from home. And it's been a time, I think, that people have obviously lost their jobs, but also reflected a lot on what they want to do next. And, do you want to spend the rest of your life doing something that you're just going to work every day, or do you want to do something that makes a difference? So thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, I'm happy to be here. Absolutely. And you are absolutely right. I mean, a lot of people are really questioning. I think the last year and a half, however long it's been, it feels like forever. But I think it has definitely given people the opportunity to really question what it is that they're doing and if they're doing the right thing for themselves long term.
Absolutely. A great place to start, I think, would be for you to give people a bit of a background about how you work, or the work that you do and how you actually work with people.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I've had several career pivots myself. I got my degree in foreign policy and thought I would become an ambassador, and learned very quickly that diplomacy is not quite what it's cracked up to be. It is not what it looks like on the television or in the movies. But I actually spent a lot of time working in the hospitality and tourism industry. I loved doing that. I ended up getting my MBA in order to get a promotion, and then decided to get my PhD and started teaching. And on the side, I've been doing, because I've pivoted my career several times, I've helped other people do the same. And, just in December, I decided to leave academia and actually dedicate full time all of my attention to helping people, find their own passion or change career paths, whatever it may be, because I have, I've certainly seen the need. I mean, it seems like this immediate panic when COVID started and people got laid off, and all of a sudden I was getting all of these calls, and I really looked at it as, oh my goodness, people are they're making very quick, irrational decisions. And it's sort of, I know that it's a tough time, but take a deep breath, take a step back, and let's be a little bit more thoughtful about this before you go committing to something that does not really make sense to you. So it depends on the individual and what their needs are and what it is that they're thinking. When somebody comes to me and says, oh, I think I need to go back and get a graduate degree, it's like, well, hold on a second. Are you even really sure that this is what you want to do with your life? Let's think about that before you invest 2 years and $40,000 or whatever it is and committing, to this new pathway. Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting, isn't it? I think you've touched on something that people do a lot, which is that kind of reactivity. So reacting to a situation or a pain that they're experiencing drive the decision that they make next. So, I mean, what are some of the things that you've seen with your clients in terms of, say, for want of a better term, mistakes that they might make in making a transition or thinking about a transition?
Right. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is thinking that. I think there's a couple. One is, thinking that a degree or more education or another certificate is going to solve their problem. I had several people consult me about, should I get an MBA? And I said, okay, well, if you're going to do that, what is the end goal? What is the objective for getting the MBA? So I think that's one thing. I think that the other, big mistake that I see people make is they say, well, I'm either, I'm too old, or I've spent 20 years in this industry and I would like to transfer and do something different, but I can't. And it's, there are always transferable skills, and it's so important for people to think about that. Even if you're an Uber driver, you're an Uber driver, which means that you have communication skills, time management, you can follow directions, you can provide good customer service, so you need to be able to think about how you can harness all of those different skills and then just reframe them and maybe alter them a little bit to meet, whatever need it is that you're thinking about currently, the change that you want to make.
Fantastic. Nish?
Yeah, no, just wanted to welcome Brendan, and Brendan, calling all the way from Canada, I think. So welcome, Brendan. It must be pretty late in the evening for you, but thank you for joining us all the way from Canada.
Yeah.
And any other Sydney side, I want to apologize, please. Yes, I was just going to rub them.
Because you're in Brisbane, aren't you, Kelly?
I am, yes.
Yeah,
that's right. So we can be absolutely go berserk on Sydney siders. Okay, so tell us, about the clients that you work with who are kind of in the midst of career transitions. What are some of the kind of, what is symptoms people say that they need a change in career? Because it doesn't necessarily come up just like that. People are, itchy about something. People are saying, yeah, you know what, I like this, I don't like this. When do people start to really talk about career change, from the clients that you heard so far?
Right. It really depends. I mean, some of them, obviously, it's an immediate need because they've lost their position due to a redundancy. So obviously that happens sometimes. And very often the biggest thing that I end up doing with clients at that point of time is really encouraging them to not rush into anything, because, that desperation and that, oh my goodness, when is the next time I'm going to get a paycheck? Yes, I do understand that it's hard to not know, when you're going to get that next bit of influx of cash. But at the same time, rushing into something and then ending up at the wrong company where you're particularly making too many compromises. For instance, whether it's the length of the commute, or they tell you that you have to work evenings and it really is not going to work because you have to pick up your kids. when you make those kinds of compromises and say, oh, I'll figure it out later, later comes a lot sooner than expected, and very often I have people come to me who've recently made career changes or changes in job, I should say. And as a result, they're coming back to me saying, this is just not working out. I mean, this is not a good fit. But in terms of actually making a career pivot, I think that particularly with the way things are working with the whole work from home and the transition back to offices and companies kind of pulling out and, what they've given their employees so much over the past year. As a result of that, it's really made people think about what it is that they want to do. And so that's where I've really started to see the career pivot and, I'm only here for so long. I only have to work for another, let's say, 10 years or whatever it may be. I'd like to do something where I make an impact or just something I really enjoy. And so a lot of it is really looking at what makes the most sense for the individual and how can they achieve that, in order to be as happy and fulfilled as possible. Because I think that is also very important for people.
What do you think of some of the, because there's a few elements in the mix, I reckon, with this. There's like wrong company, wrong culture, wrong jobs or wrong career. So that career element, like the job part of it, what are some of the signs do you think that people should pay attention to if they're in the wrong job or the wrong career?
Well, the interesting thing, again, because, you've had so many positions eliminated, and a lot of jobs have been, you might have 3 people that just did various different jobs, and they've all been, collapsed into one due to lack of staffing. And I think one of the first things that people need to do is actually consider going back to their leadership and asking about potentially having their job rewritten, because there is always that option. Maybe they would like to stay with the company, but it really means doing something that really interests them. And so there is this idea of reworking jobs and your job description to make sure that is, kind of meeting your needs, if you will. And I think that that's really important to look at. What exactly is the sticking point? Is it something that's changeable, or is it something that is just not possible? If you're in let's say a customer-facing role, and you decide, well, I really don't like people, and I don't like having to talk to strangers, that is probably a problem. Okay, so it may be a matter of, okay, well, maybe we can put you back at the house so you're not dealing so much, face to face with customers. Maybe you can be dealing with the internal employees. So I think that it's really important to be very critical about what is the struggle for you.
Yeah, it sounds like some deep reflection, and maybe tick off some low-hanging fruit before launching into something that could be really big. We've had a comment from Dr. Harshal Vora. He's in Sydney at the moment in quarantine, landed last week from Dubai. I hope that's going well for you. It's difficult for some people when you get locked up and you're not expecting to. So I really hope it's going well for you, and hope you're enjoying the show as well. So, do you have a question, Nish?
No, I just wanted to acknowledge Dr. Harshal Vora's thing. And if you need any help with quarantine, let me know, because I've been there.
Yeah, no, she's an expert.
I'm kind of I can't say veteran. I think one quarantine can teach you for a lifetime. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll probably have some Netflix movie suggestions for you. But Kelly, if we start with somebody's interested, and what are some of the ways that they can figure out the right kind of something that they might enjoy? Because it sounds very fanciful that you go and find something that you really enjoy. Like Confucius said that probably many centuries back, that if you find a job that you love, then you are there's something like that. I don't remember exactly.
You never work another day in your
how do you really help people identify? Because there's two aspects to that in my view. Is that one is that they also got to make sure that that particular pathway works for them. Let's say somebody wants to become, I don't know, a pilot, right? Now you got to wait for 2 years, right? 3 years, you got to study and everything else. Now have you got enough cash with you to make sure that you can sustain, right?
Right.
How have you seen people balancing both of them effectively, and what are your kind of best practices around what do you do in those times?
Right. One of the things I do like to, I mean, I ask a lot of questions and run my clients through a number of different exercises to get them to, because some people come and they have absolutely no idea what they want to do, whereas other people say, well, I've always wanted to write, let's say. So in order for those who are really quite open to different ideas, there's several different exercises that we do. But the other thing that I like, and as we narrow things down, whether it be again, a customer service role, or whether it be something in PR, or, whatever it may be. One of the things I do often like to do with them is to really get them to think about having these kind of bite-sized experiences, whether it's them finding someone they know in a couple of different areas and maybe having a conversation with them first, or perhaps, spending an afternoon with them, or, and then if it's something that they think that they have, this might be realistic, potentially volunteering, or, doing a little bit of freelance, again, just to kind of get a little bit of experience and see if this does make sense, in terms of fit, because, sometimes it does, but then sometimes it doesn't. So when I did my undergrad, I went to Johns Hopkins, which most people know that name now because of COVID. They're very well known for medicine. And anybody that was in pre-med, they had to spend time in the hospital, because they said, we have too many people come in here and realize that they are not comfortable seeing other people's blood. And you cannot be a doctor. Yeah, exactly. I don't care how smart you are or how badly you want to be a doctor. If you can't handle that, you shouldn't be doing this. And I think that that's very true is, again, don't commit to something like being a pilot if you end up, getting airsick. So it's good for you to experience some of these things and understand, what are the warts in addition to what are the rewards of doing these types of positions.
I love that approach because it takes it's bite-sized too, isn't it? It's like, do some experimentation, see how you respond and react to it. But it's also taking some action, because I think people get stuck because they don't like what they're in, but the thought of getting to where they think they should go is a long journey in their minds, and so they're not taking even the smallest step to get there. I think that approach sounds, quite practical and pragmatic, but it also gets people with that kind of momentum as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I actually, it's interesting because I do find some people, they will think about leaving their jobs for 6 months or a year or more, and then all of a sudden just decide, okay, I want to do it. And then they tell me, oh, well, I've thought about this for the last 2 years. And it's sort of like, well, if you spent the last 2 years, even an hour a week, trying some of these things and building up some of these skills, then you have, built up your resume a little bit better. You've potentially made some connections in this particular industry. So I do think there's a lot of value in, even if you are thinking that you might be interested in making a change at some point, give it a little bit of a try and start working towards that before you do reach that breaking point. And it's, I have to get out of here. It's been too long. Okay. Now I'm really serious about it.
Absolutely.
I think it falls into the whole thing around, iteration when you are trying out different things and figuring out, in a startup world, they call that as minimum viable product. You create a minimum viable product and then you go to market to test it out and then come back, oh, no, I don't think so that works. Scrap that idea. What have I learned from it? So the whole thing is around keeping small actions, keeping the table clear is what a lot of engineers, when they design things, they want to look at 2-3 different options to approach the problem rather than one option and giving the energy to the whole one option, because it might end up to be not workable. The whole product can go, haywire. So I think that is what is needed, to get that. And I forgot, there's one actually particular startup or an initiative, Caroline, that I wanted to get her to come and talk about during the last year's major lockdown. But I'll find out and send some information, because she helps people second projects that you want to do. You will learn something like she's got a dedicated space, and she runs some courses for you to really inspire the thinking around what extra thing that you want to. It's not so much about side hustle as much that you're not there out to make money out of it. Now, obviously, side hustle is also another way for you to test out those ideas as well. Like, going back to what Kelly said, if you enjoy writing and if you feel you are stuck into customer service, speaking to people who are, angry with you with their mortgage rate and everything else, and you really have got a deep passion for writing, go and test it out. Go and put yourself on Odesk or put yourself on Fiverr. Just taste it out, whether there's somebody who's out there to pay for those services or not, right? So that's another way to look at that as well. Side hustle is probably more involved, bite-sized, approach, rather than the other one what Kelly suggested is volunteering, shadowing people, seeing what they do, asking questions, getting kind of into the head space, about the work they do, and then you can kind of make those judgments. So I think that's pretty, and I think a lot of career practitioners and new theories coming up talks about these things, quite a lot about iterating, trying out different things, and then figuring out ultimately what is that you want to do. Yeah.
I think, just on that note, I think you're also building that network too, aren't you? If you, the greatest, or not the greatest, but a great compliment you can give to people is like, I'm really interested in what you do and what you enjoy about it. Can I come and sit with you for a while? I mean, I'd love it if somebody asked me that. I'd sit with them all day. But it's a compliment, and it's also demonstrating a level of curiosity, that like your decision-making process in terms of, thinking about things, and you're kind of putting yourself in the center of, a group of people that can help you make a change as well.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing is, I mean, who doesn't like talking about themselves?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to the CEO and say, I want to sit down and talk to you, it's unrealistic, because you don't have enough information and they probably don't have enough time. But if you want to go into finance, reaching out to somebody who's in that area and just saying, oh, well, this sounds really interesting. I'd like to learn more before I make some decisions. Do you have 20 minutes free? Most of the time they're going to say yes. I mean, you obviously going to have to be diplomatic about it and compromises to time and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, people love to see that, even what it is that they do, that they can become quite mundane to them over time, is exciting to somebody else. And it can actually really invigorate them and say, oh, wow, okay, there are other people that are, maybe I should be a bit more appreciative for my job. And I've certainly seen that happen. And people come back and say that to me. Yep.
One of the biggest questions I think people have is, they've made a change, or they might have done the study, they might have done the volunteer work, or they might have made a decision that they want to change. What sort of job search strategies are most effective, have you found, with your clients? So how do they actually go out and get that job that, that new job that's a new career change, basically?
Right. Well, I think that probably any of us who have dealt with people that have been looking for jobs, the number one thing that we say is don't send your resume blindly. I mean, yes, do that, but the chances of actually, your chance of getting into Harvard Business School is better than getting an interview on a blind application. Those are just the numbers, because you're sending in a resume and ATS is looking at it and they're searching for keywords. The biggest thing that I really tell people is reach out, try to develop those relationships. because so much nowadays is really relationships and getting to know people and that word of mouth. And I just don't think that that can be underestimated. So I had a client not too long ago who this was going to be her second career. And this was long before COVID. And I forget what she did for her job, but she went to law school, got out of law school, and despite the fact she had 20 years at a rather executive level, she could not get a job as a entry-level lawyer, and for 2 years before she came to me. And what ended up happening is I said, well, what do you mean you can't get a job? I mean, you're certified as a lawyer. And she really struggled. She said, well, I don't have any law experience because I worked in my real job while I was going to uni. So anyway, what ended up happening is, I mean, she had blanket applied and was getting absolutely nowhere. And so what we ended up doing with her is the same exact thing. She was really passionate. Her parents had been refugees from Poland to Australia right after World War II. She was really passionate about immigration and helping people who were at a disadvantage, as refugees. So we got her just a job doing some volunteer work at Milparis State School, which is one of the schools where a lot of new arrivals to Australia come to get their English up to scratch before they go into the typical high schools. That way English isn't an issue. So what she did is she went into the school. She said, I know that you've got a lot of students here with parents who are refugees. Do they need help with, their visa, paperwork? Why don't you send something out to your students? And the parents went wild and came back and said, yes, we need your help. So that started something. She started reaching out to people who were in refugee law, immigration law, and saying, this is what I'm doing. They then started to get to know her, and that's how she ended up getting a job about 5 or 6 months later. So again, that would have never happened because they had not given her a second look until they started to know who she was a little bit. So I think that, again, that those little bite-sized experiences and expanding your web makes such a difference. It really does.
She's demonstrating her passion rather than just writing that on a bit of paper as well. Yeah. So, yeah, fantastic. How do you, I guess it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on, if you, again, you come to apply for a job, you've decided that, how do you talk about the change on your resume? What would you say? What would you recommend that people talk about the change in direction that they've made? Or do you recommend that they set up a resume that just talks to what they want to do now? Or
Well, I think the biggest thing is, with your resume, that's really just showcasing the positions that you've had and the skills that you have. But you can absolutely put things like volunteer work or freelancing. You can put all of those things on there. But it's typically in, the cover letter or your LinkedIn profile or obviously in the interview, really being able to get to the hard edge, why I'm making the change and why it makes sense and why I'm now qualified to be doing this, even though I've never been in this type of position before. So it's really important I always like to have people determine their origin story, sort of where you came from and why you're going in this direction, so that you can really frame that and get people to understand. And then also see you as an authority, even though you haven't necessarily proven yourself in this area, but understand why you can very easily become one based on, building off the skills that you have.
Fantastic. Got a question which I can't quite read. Do you want to read it out, Nish?
Sure. So I think while career change is a major issue on previous experience, I think employers also are not particularly, that hurdle is still there. Employers want to take a low-hanging fruit. That, I've got somebody with stable, predictable experience, and this person wanting to change. That's still a massive barrier for somebody to breach through, somebody to break through those barriers. So what do you think will help? So I want to also understand, one is from the point of view of job seeker, and from your experience, what really kind of compels an employer to say, you know what, let's give this person a chance. Let's invite him or her for the interview. What do you think is needed to have that affirmative response or some responses from the employers or recruiters, for example?
Right. I honestly think I'm going to go back to the expanding your network and really trying to find some way to get your name in front of that individual. Because if you leave it entirely up to chance, just submitting your resume through an online portal, the chances of that actually getting through are unfortunately stacked against you. And so I really think that trying to talk to anyone that you can find that knows the company, works in the company, even is maybe even potentially a competitor who's in the same field, if it's a very small field, and saying, I'm particularly, I know that this X, Y, and Z has an opening, and this is what I'm applying for. I was wondering, do you have anything similar? And they may say, oh, well, I don't, but I do actually know somebody who works there, even though we're a competitor. So any way that you can use your resources and the people around you to put your name in front of them, I think is the biggest thing, because yes, it is very hard to get them to go out on a limb and give you a chance, and the chance is just getting the interview. Okay, we're not even necessarily talking about getting the offer, just getting the interview, because that's where you can sell yourself. I mean, that's the most important thing, is just having that face-to-face or Zoom conversation.
I'll give a little example from one of my clients I worked with quite a few years ago. She was actually a software engineer, and she went and studied accounting because she decided that she wanted to talk to people, not screens. Basically, was her origin story, I think. And so while she was studying, she volunteered at her school, her committees at school, the P&C committee, as treasurer. But she also wanted to apply when she was getting close to finishing to the Big Four. And the Big Four used to have, or still do, the careers days, and they have representatives from the company that they go and, have stands. So she made sure she went to every single stand and actually eyeballed and got talking to the recruiters that were there for the graduate programs. And she was an older graduate, so she would have been in her 30s at that point. So if they saw her resume on paper, there was no way that they were going to pick her. But what the recruiters said is, give me your name, because she got talking to them about who she was and what she was looking for and was really interested. They said, give me your name. I'm going to put you on the list. We get thousands of applications. So I'm just going to write down your name. And that happened once. And then her mission became with the other guys and the other firms to get on the list, basically. And so it helped her get through the masses of applications, because at the end of the day, the ATS was shortlisting so many, but Human Eyes then had to go through, and they really wanted that shortcut process to decide who was a good fit to go through the next stage. So it's a great example of, what you're saying is like, somehow find a way to make yourself known for that particular, that particular person as well. So, but yeah, she's like, I'm getting on the list. I'm making sure I'm getting on the list of every single recruiter that I meet, so they actually know me. So, right. And she's extroverted, so that helped. But,
yeah, good. I was going to say, another way that you can sort of get yourself on the list, and I mean, this is a little bit of a gamble, but it can certainly work, is think about a value add, where you see the business can make an improvement, or, something that you think that they can be a bit more innovative about. And if you can make a suggestion that is, very relevant to the job that you want, that is something that would benefit their customers, that is one way to stand out and say, I've thought really long and hard about this. I noticed that your customers are talking about that on the, let's say, Facebook page, whatever it may be, for your company. I was I actually did a project similar to this, and I would love to talk to you about how you could do X, Y, and Z. And here's just a short blurb about what I'm proposing, and then see if that'll get you an introduction. Now, sometimes people may skip over it and not be interested. Sometimes, there is the potential that they might say, oh, we think we know better. But any company that's worth their weight, if you're suggesting something that can potentially make massive improvements and meet a need for their customers, chances are they'll actually give it a thought. So that's another way that you can certainly stand out, is by proposing, a new solution. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And finally, Kelly, share us your learning of pivoting career for many times. So what are, if you have to, there's a famous thing, right, on LinkedIn. What would I tell my 19-year-old self?
Oh my goodness. What would I tell my 19-year-old self? Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that in a long time. I think I would have told my 19-year-old self to learn about social media a lot sooner. That's what I would have learned, because when I decided to kind of go out on my own, I'd done this on the side for so long, it was all by word of mouth. And so I would have clients just come to me every so often, and then I would work with them. But when I decided to go full time, I had to suddenly, think about a TikTok and an Instagram and this, that, and the other thing. So I feel like a dinosaur because my 11-year-old introduced me to TikTok. Not that I really use it that much, but yeah, I wish I knew a little bit more about how to make a video or how to, make a photo look pretty. So, but that's, so second nature. But okay, so in terms of lessons I've learned from making my own career pivots, I think one is definitely keeping up with changing times and seeing, trying to forecast and predict where the industry is going that you might be interested in. And how that might certainly affect you, and how you can upskill as much as possible, So particularly with so much happening now, being remote and long distance and all of those sorts of things, that's really impacting the way that we communicate, the way that we collaborate. So the more that we can look at how industry is changing and how that might be affecting our jobs, that I think is very important. But, personally, in terms of my own career pivots, my father says that I was born an adult because I was very independent from a very young age. And this was and I'm the oldest, so this was something my mother really struggled with because, as soon as I got the chance, I was like, bam, I'm out of here. Where can I go next? What can I do? I was just fearless. And I think and I was always looking for the next creative, interesting thing that I could do. And I think that has really served me very well. And I think that, and as we become older and more settled and have mortgages and kids and those sorts of things, it becomes harder and harder to do that. So we do fear that. So I think that there is something to be said for, not being too afraid to take that leap. And if you do have that concern about taking that leap, thinking about how you can be as proactive as possible to start making those changes. My intention was to leave academia in about 4 or 5 years, but my university started offering voluntary redundancies last year because their student numbers went down and so they didn't need as many staff. And I said, well, I wasn't planning to leave my job for a while, to go full time into career, strategy, but this is a great time to do it. I'll speed up my timeline. So the more you can start thinking about how you might want to change in the future and how you can start preparing for those changes, I think are really important. And same thing, it takes time to build a network and to start making yourself known and get that reputation. So the sooner you can start working on that, even if you are considering a few different directions, the more it will help you long term.
Fantastic. There's a question from Dr. Harshal Vora. Question to Kelly. For someone like me, 55 plus, is a 30-year working career, how do you overcome the comments overqualified for the job? It's such a tough question. I'm going to hand pass it to you, Kelly.
That is definitely a tough question, and I do actually, I really feel for our more mature and senior workforce, because I do see the ageism, even though we're not supposed to be doing that. I definitely do see that becoming quite prevalent, and I've had a lot of people actually come to me for that exact reason, saying I'm looking for my final chapter career before retirement, but nobody wants to look at me because they can see that I have been around a while, so which is, I think, really unfortunate. I think that, I mean, obviously, your resume will showcase what it is that you've done, and what your potential is. And I think so long as you can get yourself in front of somebody and have that conversation about, okay, yes, I am qualified, but I am looking for opportunities where I can, mentor some of the newbies and help. But at the same time, I'm going to be learning from them, because the industry is changing, whatever your industry may be. Innovation is always happening, and I'm looking forward to learning more. And so it's very much a two-way street. So I think it's very important to go in there and be a little bit humble, to make sure that they don't think that you are coming in expecting to know everything, and not be questioned about that. And that you acknowledge that, yes, you might be quite qualified, but it's certainly not an overqualification issue, because there's always so much learning and developing in every industry at this point in time.
Makes absolute sense.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Vora, for that question. And feel free to reach out to Kelly. Connect with her, ask a question. She'll be more than happy to help. Kelly, once again, thank you very much for joining us. In this really interesting chat. We absolutely love the discussion and your views. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Happy to come back anytime. And I hope that if there is anything that anybody has questions about, please do feel free to reach out and connect with me. And I'd be happy to have a chat and give some advice to you in a more personal basis.
Fantastic. So if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, Career Care Package, please do. Please follow the hashtag Career Care Package. Naish and I have got some exciting announcements coming up in terms of a card game that we're launching that will help people, but we'll expand on that a little bit further as we go down the track, because we're developing it as we speak. Naish, is there anything else that you need to tell people?
No, I've just been handed over a note by my son that can you get lollies from me from Safeway. So that's that's what happened.
Well, we won't stop
and
you.
I just named and shamed him, and he's now pretty embarrassed about it. So Kelly, once again, thank you very much. And yes, next week we have got a book author coming to talk to us, and her book is nominated in the Australian Career Books of the Year 2021, and she has written a book called Land That Job: Moving Forward After COVID-19, and her name is Sharon Davey, and she'll be joining us next Friday, so do not miss that, because that will be very interesting. Sharon brings with her over 25 years of career practice experience, and she's written this book. So it's going to be a fabulous discussion. Join us next Friday, 12 p.m. Until that time, mask up Melbourne, mask up New South Wales. Rest of you can, have a free ride. Enjoy yourself, and we will see you on next Friday. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.